First of all, thank you so much, Professor Kinnour and Lalita, for giving me this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to talk to students and scholars on South Asia. And I always look forward to my interaction because it's always a two-way traffic. In fact, I will speak for around 30 minutes, and I would encourage you to ask anything under the sun relating to, if I can answer, I'll give you an answer. As was rightly said, my son was accepted here. And after visiting this beautiful campus and this beautiful city, he made a serious mistake. So I hope his younger brother doesn't make that mistake. And I'll be talking about Pakistan's foreign policy. And to start with, this is the picture of K2. This is the second highest peak in the world. It is over 8,216 meters. And it stands alone. So Pakistan, a lot of people say, I've always said that Pakistan is a new country. We only got independence in 47, but it is an old civilization. No one knows better than Professor Kinnour. We are, in fact, I always have a standing joke with my Indian colleagues. I said, Pakistan should have been named India, not India itself, because India got its name from River Indus, which runs through Pakistan. And in fact, I say River Indus is a kind of a boundary between Central Asia and South Asia. West of Indus is Central Asia, and east of Indus is South Asia. And of course, so it's a great, if you are interested in trekking, mountaineering, that is the country to visit. It has some beautiful peaks there. 5 peaks over 8,000 meters, and there are over 120 peaks over 7,000 meters. This can be the mountaineer's paradise. It's a very interesting country. Pakistan is at the crossroads of 3 important regions of the world. Middle East on its west, South Asia on its east, and Far East and China on its north. Frankly, that's what I say. We come from a very tough neighborhood. And had Pakistan been located anywhere else in the world, in Europe, in Latin America, in Africa, even in Middle East, it would have been a major power. It's a country of 200 million people with a median age of 21. In fact, 60% of our population is young. So that is Pakistan's greatest asset as well as its greatest challenge, the youth bulge. If you look at the history of any revolutions, you will see that it's always young male, generally, in the old world, who bring in change. So that's what we are really grappling with the issue, that how should we handle the youth bulge in Pakistan. They should be trained, equipped to be part of the global market. What is happening in Pakistan, you cannot trace its origins to 9/11. That was a watershed, I'm sure. I always say what is happening in today's Pakistan. When I come from Rawalpindi. When I was growing up as a young child, we used to get a lot of foreigners, Americans, Europeans coming to Pakistan. In fact, my home was on the famous hippie trail. So we used to have those people from all over the world coming to Pakistan. But that all changed way back on the Christmas Day 79. That's one thing that you should always keep in mind, that when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, Pakistan, despite being under US sanctions, decided to challenge that invasion, because we believed that the Soviets were moving towards the warm waters and we had to stop them. And in 79, we started one of the greatest campaigns in covert. We organized the Mujahideen, and that's something we did with the Americans, with the Saudis, with the Chinese, with all over the world. And that's what I say, after World War II, 3 significant developments in the US foreign policy, they owe it to Pakistan. Number 1, the defeat of the Soviet Union. Number 2, the opening to China. Not many people know, but China opened up with the US way back in 71 due to secret diplomacy conducted by my seniors. In fact, when President Nixon went to China in January 72, the first word spoken to him by Premier Zhou Enlai was, "Never forget the bridges you crossed." It was a secret diplomacy, and of course, that opening to China led to the present relationship between the two countries and enabled the withdrawal of the US forces from Vietnam. That was very significant. I'm really surprised that this factor is often overlooked in a lot of places that I go to. Well, the most important relationship of Pakistan is with our neighboring country, not with the US, not with Saudi Arabia, not with India, is Afghanistan. Before coming here, I was the Chief of Staff to the Foreign Secretary, who is the head of the Diplomatic Corps. And a lot of people used to ask me, which area takes maximum time of the Foreign Secretary? I used to say, undoubtedly Afghanistan. Pakistan and Afghanistan have shared the same history. It's a very troubled history. It was the only country which opposed Pakistan's entry into the UN in the 47. But there are strong ethnic, cultural, lingual ties between the two countries. In fact, I tell a lot of people that if you read the history, the modern Afghanistan was formed by Ahmad Shah Abdali, 1747, exactly 2 years, 100 years before the creation of Pakistan. And if you look at the empire of Ahmad Shah Abdali, it was exactly the modern day Pakistan and Afghanistan. Exactly. So it's a very important relationship. Pakistan, even till today, is hosting over 3 million legitimate Afghan refugees and similar number of unregistered Afghan refugees in Pakistan. Turkey has recently become the biggest host of refugees, but Pakistan has been hosting Afghan refugees since 1979, and believe me, Pakistan is not a very rich country. When people think about accepting refugees, that's what I say. I said, look at a poor country like Pakistan. We have accepted 5-6 million Afghan refugees over the years, and they have used our schools, they have used but that's a very important relationship. There is, of course, the relation between the two countries that they say that Pakistan is supporting terrorism in Afghanistan, and we lay the same on Afghans, because we say that Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has safe havens in Kunnar, Nuristan, Paktika, and Patika. So it is a very difficult relationship. We are trying our best to involve it and try to resolve it. So this is where we get most of the attacks from the Afghan side. Now, sorry, excuse the spelling, it's not Ilham like Muhammad Iqbal. But this is what Iqbal was the poet philosopher of Pakistan. He got his degree from Cambridge in 1905 or 8. Then he went to Heidelberg for his PhD. In 1933, he read a poem, and I'm sure, excuse my Persian professor would know if I'm wrong pronouncing. He said, Asiya yak pakar aabuge last. He says that Afghanistan is the heart of Asia. And if there is peace in Asia, Afghanistan, there is peace in Asia. But if there is conflict in Afghanistan, there will be a conflict in Asia. And mark you, this was written in 1933. It is still engraved in the Pakistani embassy in Kabul. In fact, that embassy was burned down way back in 96 when I was there. So we have moved to a new structure. So this is, and you know, no country has done more for the free world than the Afghans, because they have really fought the Soviets. In fact, I've seen a copy of that famous part of Berlin Wall in the infamous ISI mess in Pakistan, where the Germans have given to Pakistan to those who struck the first blow. There would have been no unification of Germany, no fall of Berlin Wall, had there been no resistance, actual fighting by the Afghans, And it was supported by the Pakistanis and the Americans itself. So I strongly believe when I was in Turkmenistan, we used to believe that the world had spent billions of dollars to fight the Soviets. Had we spent a fraction of that money in building schools, roads, creating linkages between Central Asia and India through pipelines from Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, it would have had an immense economic, social, and commercial impact on the Afghan society. But unfortunately, instead of focusing on Afghanistan, the world left them in '89, which led to the rise of anarchy and Taliban. And now that is, I believe, there's a fear in Afghanistan and Pakistan that at one time the world may turn back from Afghanistan, and it might have a lot of serious repercussions on global politics. Well, Afghans are uncertain about the future. They are weak political structures still in Afghanistan. In fact, if you ever get an opportunity, please do read a book by Professor Wali Nasser. It's called, he wrote a book, and that's what he said, that's the whole thing, that you have to build Afghanistan up. And there is, the world is working on it, but there needs to be a more synergy, because unfortunately what we witness, of course you may disagree with it, there is still a lot of politics going on in that region, because we believe that India is encircling us from Afghanistan. We are trying to create our influence in Afghanistan. And I've always believed, because I've dealt with India, I've dealt with Afghanistan, that South Asia cannot realize its true objective. Even India cannot realize its true power until or unless we all three characters sit down and try to resolve this problem. As long as we are pulling each other's leg, this would remain a cauldron, and it will continue festering more uncertainty and conflict in the region. The refugees is something very important, that they have to go back to their homeland. They have to have a future, and that's what we strongly believe. But what we are witnessing, that in the last years we have tried to regulate the cross-border movement between Afghanistan and Pakistan. We are witnessing a lot of Afghans were still leaving Afghanistan and coming to Pakistan. And what was the indicator? The indicator was that the prices of property in Kabul, Kandahar, Jalalabad had fallen significantly, and it had risen in Peshawar and Islamabad. So we have to create conditions in Afghanistan so the Afghans can feel safe to return to their countries. And narcotics. Narcotics is still an issue globally, even in Pakistan. There are a lot of addicts. Unfortunately, it has been used as a, but we have to, for our future, for the Afghan future, for the future of the entire world, we have to make sure that the cultivation of poppy should be controlled in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, you may say whatever to the Taliban, but during the days of the Taliban, the Afghan society was disarmed, and they had completely eliminated, almost eliminated poppy cultivation in Afghanistan. It has again come up. That's a serious issue for us and for the world. We are, frankly, Pakistan's concern is that we believe that the same thing will happen, what happened in '89-90, that Afghanistan will be abandoned. There will be a complete chaos in that country, which would directly impact our security, because it has changed our society. I remember even in Pakistan, the Pathans, in fact there are more Pathans in Pakistan than in Afghanistan, always used to carry guns. But after this conflict in Afghanistan, I've seen that Pakistan and US are probably the only two countries where you can easily get an assault rifle, which is I find it very abhorrent. So influence of foreign regional powers. We strongly believe that India is using Afghanistan for creating instability in Pakistan, like they did in the 70s. You'll be surprised. This Afghan insurgency has been there over the years, as I said, and India and the Soviets were involved in them, and they are back in Afghanistan. So for Pakistan, which is a very thin country, it's a genuine concern that we have got a huge neighbor on our east, and if we get a pincer movement from our western borders, it has some genuine concerns for Pakistan, and they have to be understood and appreciated by the world. Because, of course, as I said, there are safe havens in Nuristan and Kunard. We have given the links of the Pakistani Taliban. Apparently, they are not touched. They say the same thing about the Haqqani network and the Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan. There is an element of truth, because Pakistan had created these actors. But now, as we talk today, 180,000 Pakistani troops are fighting in FATA. In fact, we've lost 65,000 people since 9/11. 7,000 of our troops have died in the last 14 years. Every day, my own nephew, he was a young lieutenant in the Pakistan Army. He got seriously injured in Bajor. He was hospitalized for over a year. He's still going back to hospital over the year. So that's the kind of sacrifice that we have faced. And then there is an argument that the Pakistanis are, how can we support Taliban who are attacking our country? As I said, we've lost people. Within the army, we've lost 1 serving lieutenant general, 5 major generals, 12 brigadiers, a lot of soldiers because of this Taliban. So there is a realization in Pakistan that these are very dangerous elements. They have to be contained. But you have to address the issue which is attracting those people towards insurgency, both in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Yeah, I've already spoken on this thing. Well, Pakistan had started the reconciliation process, and I think the biggest disservice that was done to that, we had convinced the Taliban that they have to come to the negotiation table. Unfortunately, when the Afghan intelligence leaked that Mullah Omar is dead, that gave a wrong signal to the Afghans. Again, we tried to bring the Afghans back, then Mullah Mansoor was killed in Pakistan. So the Afghans are right now not in a mood to negotiate with the Americans or with the Afghan government. Because that's what the Afghan says, that the world have the watches, but we have the time. They can fight it out. Again, one more book, if you ever get it in Afghanistan, it's called The Return of a King by William Dalrymple. That's an account of the first Afghan war, 1838 to 1841. When the British army was going to Afghanistan, the Khan of Kalat asked them, well, I'm happy that you're taking an army, but how do you propose to take it out? Only one, Major Brighton, was the sole survivor from the first Afghan war. So the Afghans have a tenacity to take a lot of pain. So that's one thing that the world has to realize, that they have to be brought back into the mainstream. The world owes a lot. Pakistan, and I used to tell my counterparts in the intelligence, in the army, that you think that Afghanistan has been the graveyard of empire, and Pakistan is no empire. We should try to stabilize the situation there. And that's what I tell a lot of American counterparts, even my Indian friends, that if you start playing games there, ultimately they will suck everyone in. Pakistan has set up 1,700 checkposts there. We're trying to regulate border. Unfortunately, we are not facing the same thing from the Taliban. In fact, when we tried to regulate border, there was a skirmish in which we lost a major and a few soldiers. So the Afghans do not accept the Durand Line. They consider it was imposed on them by the Britishers. But we think that it's about time that the two countries should try to respect each other's space, and try to work together. Pakistan has invested 500 billion in the social sector. We have built universities in bulk. We have built the roads from the border to Jalalabad. We are giving 3,000 scholarships. a lot of Afghan students are studying in Pakistan, and I think this is something that we should focus more as a country and the world as well. This is, of course, my Pakistan-US relations. You know, in the history of the US, only one head of state has been given a state banquet in Mount Vernon, which is the official residence of President George Washington. No president before or any president after that has been given that honor. That was Pakistan, Ayub Khan in 1961. In fact, if you remember, when the funeral of President Kennedy was going, the horse which was traveling with that funeral, Sardar, was a gift from Pakistan. US has invested a lot in building our economy, education, in bringing food security, in building institutions like the military, and of course, it's a two-way relationship. It's a very robust relationship. We've had an ups and downs over the years, but I think both countries have realized that both countries do each other as partners. We can disagree because as countries you can have differences of opinion. We have differences of opinion with the US. They have concerns with us. We have concerns with us. But it is a very important relationship, and I hope it continues because, you know, I went for a talk to University of Minnesota, and the chancellor of that university told me that before 9/11, Pakistanis were the fourth or fifth largest expatriate students coming to that university. Now that number had completely disappeared. At present, there are only 7,000 Pakistanis studying in US universities. This figure was way high in the 80s and 90s, which is a pity. I believe that there should be more linkages between academic, and because these are the linkages what really work. When we work with each other, you meet me, so that's one thing that, well, as per US census, there are around 500,000 Pakistanis, but our figures are definitely more of them, around 1 million. They're doing very well, and as opposed to Europe or London, it's a very educated community. We've got 37,000 Pakistani physicians working in the US, and a bigger number of engineers working here. One Pakistani, they are contributing around $37 billion to the US economy. One prominent Pakistani from Urbana, Champaign, Shahid Khan, his turnover is around $5-6 billion a year. And he is the owner of the famous football team from Florida. So the Pakistanis have contributed. The big Pakistani associations are Apna and Open. Apna is an association for physicians, and Open is for the young entrepreneurs, mostly in startups, who are doing a lot of. In fact, I keep meeting a lot of companies who are working in the software development, and they speak very highly of Pakistani quality of work in software development. The only concern that they have is of security. But that's what I tell everyone once people visit Pakistan, and I would encourage all of you, if you get an opportunity, do travel the world, do Pakistan, see things for yourself. Professor Kenor has been there, you can ask him. It's a pretty open society. In fact, a lot of people who go to Pakistan, they are pleasantly surprised at the openness of our society and the warmth of our people. One of the CEO of a company, it's called Teco, it's developed in software. He said, I've never seen so much warmth anywhere else that I feel in Pakistan. And he says, if the US State Department removes its travel advisory, I may shift half of my business to Pakistan. So that's the kind of thing that it's something very important. Well, the mistrust. We are they say Pakistan is someone who stabs you in the back. We do double dealing. We accept aid, doing not enough. But yes, there are elements of truth in these but you know, Pakistan is a country, we have serious security concerns. As I said, we live in a very tough neighborhood. We have India and China on our east, and we have Iran and Middle East, which is becoming increasingly unstable. So we have to have concerns of our security. So as long as our security is not justified, Pakistan will safeguard its interest, because Pakistan has been dismembered once in 71. Now India has come out openly because of its statements on Balochistan. They are doing it openly. We have caught their intelligence agents who are serving Lieutenant Colonel of the Indian Navy. So that's something that as long as we have genuine security concerns, there is a growing wave of anti-Americanism in Pakistan, as there is a growing wave of anti-Pakistan in the US. This was not the case. I would show you the picture when Mrs. Kennedy came to Pakistan in 62. She traveled to Peshawar in an open car. That was the kind, even during the 80s, America was the most liked country in Pakistan. But of course, since 89, the perception has changed. Same, I can say, has happened in the US, but both countries are working on it to improve it. We believe that, of course, civil nuclear deal with India, we find it extremely discriminatory, because we believe if India gets the weapon, it would really push Pakistan to enter into an arms race with India. Indian economy is doing extremely well. India has become a strategic partner of the US. Historically, India was in the Soviet camp. If you look at the history, India had strongly supported the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, while we had opposed it. But now we believe that India's economy is doing well. It's a US strategic partner. So if they acquire new capabilities, Pakistan will have to follow suit. We can't match bomb to bomb, man to India. But the recent increase of their defense budget is more than the entire budget of Pakistani armed forces. So that's the parity, and that's a genuine concern that we have faced. And we believe that we were forced to fight the war on terror, because before 9/11, believe me, there was no terrorist attack, suicide bombing in Pakistan or the Islamic world. This is a new phenomena that we are dealing with. I have seen my hometown had been bombed at least so many times through suicide bombing. This is something completely unheard of that we have seen. Yes, we have strong reservation on the drone program. Yes, I agree there was some kind of understanding between the two countries, but I believe it is creating more, because if you kill people who are not involved with, the Pathans have a tradition, they go for the revenge. So it has already served its purpose, and it should be recalled, and I think it should stop now. This is Mullah Umar Mansoor, who was killed. And this was the last opportunity to enter into a genuine dialogue with the Taliban. Now the Taliban are not willing to talk to the Americans or the Afghans. They are waiting for their time. And if you follow Afghanistan, they're making inroads. But believe me, as a Pakistani, I believe that if Taliban come to Pakistan, it would have a serious security threat on Pakistan as well. Because we have strong reservations about their worldview, about their views on women, about their views on entertainment. But we always believe, because Pakistan was one of the 3 countries which had recognized them, we believed that by engaging them, we could have controlled them more than by shunning them. Because right now, if you look at the situation on ground, they are slowly making incursions the north, south, everywhere. So these are the pictures. This is Sardar. This is Mrs. Kennedy in Karachi. So now this is again a very important. We are the same country. We speak the same language. There's a lot of commonality. In fact, anywhere in the world, if I meet Indians, because if you're from North India, we can communicate very well. We play the same sports. There are a lot of strong connections which we had with the Indians. But now this is a very strained relationship. We've already fought 4 wars with India. And at present, as we are talking, we are fighting a war with them at a height of 18,000 to 22,000 feet in Siachen Glacier. There may more people die in that war from frostbite and edema than the actual exchange of fire. So, unlike the Soviet Union and the Americans, who had the nuclear capability, but they were really far apart, and they had no history of actual conflict. With India and Pakistan, there is an actual conflict. If you go to Kashmir, it's a pretty active border. I've been there. My father was in the army. There was a regular exchange of artillery fire on both sides. So it's a pretty tense relationship, but it is a very important relationship. We strongly believe that both countries have to act maturely, come to an understanding with each other. Of course, India is 8 times the size of Pakistan, a bigger economy, a bigger stature. We have a lot of respect for that. But they should accept Pakistan not as a minion, because that's frankly what we feel. Because in the UN, we used to have strong debates with India on the question of Kashmir. And interestingly, after those debates, the Bhutanis, who are very close to the Indians, the Nepalese, the Bangladeshi, they used to come and say that at least someone is talking to India like an equal. Because frankly, that's what we accept, that you can't accept us as a junior partner. If you have to accept it, you have to accept it, and you have to resolve the issues that lie between the 2 countries. Kashmir is the main bone of contention between the 2 countries. It is, for the last 66 days, the entire valley of Kashmir, which is as big as Belgium and Netherlands combined, is in complete curfew shutdown. There was a Muslim festival of Eid. There was no, India is using pellet guns against the Kashmiri, and of course, Kashmir is one thing, because this Kashmir is an issue which is creating a lot of bad blood in Pakistan, because at the time of the partition, there were around 670 princely states. They were decided to join either India or Pakistan on the basis of geographical contiguity and will of the people. Interestingly, Kashmir was 80% Muslim, but ruled by a Hindu. Hyderabad and Junagadh were 80% Hindus, but ruled by Pakistan, by a Muslim. Those countries opted for Pakistan, but they were occupied by India. So we want that this issue should be resolved, because as long as this issue is not resolved, the ties between the 2 countries will continue to be very strained, and it's a pity that 2 countries who are very good in sport, cricket, because that's one thing that joins us, we don't play with each other. So, in fact, that's what I hope in my time there is some sanity and improvement of relations with this. So these are the words I wanted to share with you. So now I open up for any questions. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Turn the lights on a bit.